Well, hey there. Welcome to day 906 of What's Shipped to Now. Sharon Horne-Ellstrom here at your service, and just talking about what I'm doing every day. It's my way of documenting my journey, my business journey, predominantly from the brick and mortar corporate world of business to the online world of business. It's been over a quarter of a century in corporate America, working for some of the most incredible companies on the planet. And as I was doing that, had businesses on the side. I started my first business when I was 13, so I've literally been in business for 47 years, with a few exceptions. Sudden cardiac arrest. I was still in business, I just wasn't actively in the business day to day because I had a sudden cardiac arrest. I was dead and had to do cardiac rehab and recover and in a coma and all that jazz. So this is just where I share what I'm doing as I go from the offline world to the online world. And at first I was building just a component of the online world. And then in 2017, I was given the opportunity, I was afforded the opportunity as part of my divorce to divest myself from all of my previous business experiences and all of my previous businesses and do something new. Well, I was old, but I wasn't old enough to really quit doing anything. I've got too much energy to just stop in my tracks. So I'm like, well, what am I going to do? Always been interested in the internet, and I always kind of played on the sidelines and watched a little bit of what was going on, but I never got to participate because I'm always too busy running multiple businesses. And that was my excuse for not jumping in. And you know, I was in the early years where I believed, well, maybe it's a fad, maybe it's going to go away. We wanted to kind of see how it was going to play out and how it was going to impact the rest of our lives. And with COVID-19, if anybody thinks that the internet and online business is not here to stay, if nothing else, COVID-19 has solidified that automation and the internet and online business and doing things remotely is, you know, it's just totally moved that ahead, probably at least a decade in terms of people's acceptance, because it was kind of like, you know, the change in the light bulbs, the change in the television. It was all kind of forced upon us, and then we just figure it out. We figure it out. So today, I decided last night, I was brainstorming about the next Get Up and Go challenge, which is starting August 1st. I'm going to do a 30-day challenge for 31, August 1st through 31st, the whole month of August, kind of like in April, where I did the first Get Up and Go challenge. God, it's August already, coming up. August, we're going to do another 30-day challenge. Even during a pandemic, time flies. Time just keeps flying by. So to lead up to that, instead of leaving people hanging and not doing anything, and me not staying in the rhythm of creating the content for the Get Up and Go challenge every day, I decided last night, hey, there's 10 days left to the challenge. What are 10 big lessons that I've learned over my, vast 60 years of experience, pretty much the hard way? I mean, most of the lessons that we learn in our life, we don't learn them, because everything's flowers and rainbows and sunshine. We learn them because something bad happens and we have to figure it out. We survive it and we have to figure it out. And then we want to learn the lesson from that so we don't have that bad thing happen to us again. I have only ever had one really, really bad business partner. And I learned that lesson the first time. I've only ever had one bad spouse, and I learned the lesson that time. I've only had, but most of the lessons in my life, I've had to learn them several times before they stuck, and they're like, okay, that's important. I need to remember that going forward. And so I brainstormed. I just made a list. I was talking to my son, and he was visiting, and as I was chatting with him and he was doing something in the kitchen, I was like, okay, 10 days, let's just brainstorm 10 topics for the next 10 days to talk about in the Get Up and Go challenge. I thought, well, why not share some of my biggest lessons learned? So they're not in order. They're not in the order that I learned the lesson. They're not in any order. I just randomly made the list, and I'll talk about one each day. Today was all about thinking for yourself. And this is a huge topic that I keep finding myself mentioning throughout my content on various days. And it's because there's so much, and culturally, we've been brainwashed to not think for ourselves. And it's only been, we think that it's been forever, but it hasn't been forever. I'm listening to a book by Seth Godin called Linchpin. I can't remember the whole title, but it's about being a linchpin. And it's super interesting, and it's probably interesting to me because I agree with a lot of the stuff he's saying. Now, my son said he listened to it and read it first, but he didn't like the end of, toward the end of it, he didn't like what was going on. I'm like, well, I'm not there yet. I'm on my I'm listening to it on my walks. But it's very interesting. He gives kind of a history of humanity, and that we've only been around in an industrial age for 100 years maybe, out of all the time that mankind's existed. So we think that the way we live right now and the things that we believe and the thoughts that we think have always been that way, but they really haven't. They've only been that way for a very, very short time. And I believe, and he mentions in this, that this has all been created on purpose. The structure that we live in, the beliefs that we have, the way things work, have all been created on purpose to benefit a relatively small percentage of the population, and to control the vast majority of the population. And how do you control people? You control their thinking. You control the inputs. You control what they see, what they hear, what they do. It's not an accident that media, all of the media, is controlled by a few small parties and a very small number of entities, right? It's not an accident. It's all been done on purpose. And that's why, like anything else, it's absolutely positively critical that we think for ourselves, that we decide what we're going to listen to, that we choose what we're going to listen to. We can listen to anything, but we get to choose what we're going to believe or not. And just because we see it, good God, just because you read it on the internet or see it on the news, doesn't mean it's true. It's definitely not being presented as a news item. It might be being presented as that, but it certainly as hell isn't news. It's all propaganda. I mean, we are being subjected to propaganda worse than during the Nazi era. And if you don't believe it, just do a little research into it and find out. So think for yourself. That's a biggie. And guess what? It's always that way. We're always being manipulated. Do you think that marketing and advertising, it's all down to a minute science on how to trigger responses in people and to trigger the responses that somebody else wants? You have to always think about, what is the intent behind this? Why are you telling me this? Why are you telling me this in this way? Why are you trying to get in my head and get me to trigger an emotional response so that I'm attracted to and buy you and your product and services? And it's not just businesses that do this, right? It's everyone and everything. We're always selling something. And it doesn't have to be bad, but a lot of the intent is not positive. It's for someone's benefit, not necessarily yours. You always want to filter everything and make sure what you're seeing, what you're thinking, what you're reading, what you're doing, what you're choosing is actually for you and for your benefit. So 10 things like that I'm going to share over the next 10 days. Fun challenge today was a 2-part challenge. It was about how a snake would think. What a snake would think is beautiful. Now, some of these fun challenges are a stretch for my imagination. I will admit, snakes are one of those things that just freak me out. I don't like snakes at all. Never have. I don't think I ever will be a snake fan, because I don't care enough to get over that I don't like snakes. So for me to think of what would a snake think is beautiful, it's a good mind exercise, right? It's a good way of just creatively and fun. That's why I do the idioms every day for Supersize Your Business. It's a way to open my mind, think creatively, think about, well, how could this apply to business? How could this apply to my business? How could this apply to anybody who's trying to grow any type of business? And then what the saying means, where it came from, and then how does it fit with business? Today's was can't hit the side of a barn, which I can actually relate to because I learned lessons about my lack of sports and athletic ability by playing games against our barn door. My sisters and I would play dodgeball against the barn door because, you only have three or four people. You can't really make 2 teams. It's not very fun. Plus, it gave us a backdrop that the ball would come back to us so you didn't have to run around as much. And I'd play tennis against that barn door and practice playing tennis against the barn door. When I first started playing tennis, none of us could drive, so we couldn't just hop off to the tennis court because we lived out in the country. So we couldn't just, hop on our bikes and go to the tennis court. So we practiced against the side of the barn. And sometimes I couldn't hit the side of the barn. Other times I could. So that is what I'm working on. I am also working on, I did change the header for, and just the Get Up and Go stuff. I'm focusing on my Get Up and Go challenge right now and things related to that challenge, just from a consistency standpoint. Can I do a gazillion other things? Yes. But one of my biggest challenges, I will admit, and one of my biggest faults in life and in all of my businesses, not just online but off as well, was not picking a lane and staying in that lane and focusing only on that lane. The best job I did of that, and I didn't do an awesome job of that, if I'm honest, I could have always done better. We could always have done a better job. Hindsight's always 20/20, right? Was the Italian food manufacturing business. I was in that for like 37 years. So when you're in something that long, you tend to do a lot of things right. Guess what? We always do a lot more things wrong than we do right. We just build on the right things so that it seems like more is going right than wrong. But the truth is, Thomas Edison isn't the only one that had to try something 10,000 times, right? Michael Jordan isn't the only person that had to practice and work on something every single day for his entire career in life. It's all of us need to. So what are we doing every day? What are we spending our time and energy on every single day? It's those daily things that we do that determine the trajectory of our lives. Excuse me. Morning tickle. So that's it. That's all I've got today. That's what I'm working on. Would love to know if you need help with anything right now with respect to challenges, growing, building, and supersizing your business, how to do videos. I mean, I think I've done 3,200 podcast episodes, which means I've done 3,200 videos in the last couple of years. It's a lot. I forget that I do them, and I forget that that adds up to a lot over a couple of years. And so I've learned some things along the way. Am I super duper polished and professional about it? No, because that's not me. Could I be? Sure. Could I have a whole production team and I could have somebody do my makeup and my hair and stuff? Yeah, but then I would be working on their schedule, and I like to do what I want to do on my own schedule, which is first thing in the morning, create my content, and then hang out with my amazing granddaughter for the rest of the day, then do some stuff in the evening. That's my COVID plan. Excuse me. Is it perfect for me? It's perfect for right now. It's what I'm doing right now to move my business ahead through COVID-19. That's it. Have an amazing day. I will, of course, be with you tomorrow. Bye. Hopefully not coughing.